This section, we will talk about some easy one. The managerial problems types. Usually there's a routine decision and a non-routine. That means for routine, on the daily basis, you will have, I call this all small problem. You can fix that immediately, usually. Otherwise, this is non-routine, right? It becomes somehow the big problem, big issue. You need to create the project to fix that. So usually routine, we say this is the daily job. Non-routine, I would call this, or I would categorize this as the project. It becomes like a unique situation. You need to spare time, or even, like create a team to fix that. Once it becomes the project, it becomes an opportunity for you. Under what conditions? So simply, I try to keep it simple. So if we are talking about routine, non-routine, mainly we are talking about non-routine, because routine is easy. You fix it anyway. One colleague, he or she is sick, and then you need to find some replacement, right? Easy, easy. If they cannot do, you do the job, right? First line manager. But for non-routine, I would say there are 3 conditions you will encounter, this problem of, making those decisions. The first one is regarding what we call the certainty situation. Okay, under certainty, very likely impossible if this is non-routine. Usually we call it, this is a risk, or this is uncertainty. You don't know the result, right? If you know how to solve that with certainty, it is not non-routine. It is just some easy fix, small, tiny problem. All right. We would focus on this risk situation and then uncertainty. Most of the time, I would call uncertainty. Risk situation means, okay, we know there are 3 options we can solve the problem. Customer complaint, very likely. All right. So it has, somehow like you have the option, you can solve it quickly, or you have to pay additional money, or you need to escalate to your boss. This is risk because pretty much the alternatives. Take the risk. You cannot say, oh, because of the risk, I don't handle the customer complaint. I just ignore that. You will have big trouble, right? Okay. Uncertainty means that you don't know the alternative. You don't know how many alternatives you have, right? And then also you don't know what about the result or the consequence. If something serious happens, this will fall into this uncertainty situation. Okay. So also I would say, hey, if you really have that uncertainty situation, you got something to do. All right. Treat this not as the trouble, treat this as the opportunity, show your ability. The probability are very difficult, very hard to tell. Okay. You have available alternative, but you are not sure those alternatives can solve the problem or not. Okay. If not, you need to escalate. And then also you need to sit with your boss to go through that again. Okay. Whether your boss can allocate the resource to solve that. Money, okay, labor, and then time. If you have all those, you can fix that anyway. That's why you have no reason to worry. Remember back to this slide, all right? Why worry, okay? If your boss cannot, he should escalate. That becomes not your problem. That becomes your boss's problem. I think that in the textbook, they introduced this 5 steps for like, let's say, to solve the problem. They said that you needed to be very creative, but I would say treat it as the project, as the opportunity, okay? So look for new ways, look for, you can say creative, but I don't like it very much because you're just trying to figure out the situation. Remember the STAR approach, STAR method. Situation, and then you figure out the alternative. Your creativity is only for those alternatives, right? But since you have limited resource, limited time, limited labor, that means there are limited alternatives as well. Creative, once we talk about the constraint, creative is not the thing. You are very creative, but it is not feasible. I would introduce you to use this project management mindset to solve the problem instead of being creative. We have the constraint. What constraint? Money, time, labor, right? The efforts, whatever, your efforts, your team's efforts. So although you think you can 100% solve the problem, but probably not, right? Remember that I talk about the flooding issues. The flooding, we solve the problem, but the loss still there. Those goods are were damaged. And then although we can somehow negotiate with the supplier to compensate us, but still the loss is already there. You cannot make it 100% satisfactory. Please bear with me because if I put this into the second week will be a long week, right? So I have already talked too much. Chapter 11 regarding the problem solving decision making. This is, I think this is important for your manager. When we talk about some approach to decision making or some approach to problem solving, we will introduce you two models. One is called the rational model. One is about the behavioral model. I would say personally, I would prefer you to use or apply this so-called the behavioral model. Why? Because we cannot use, although we try to be rational, right? When we make our decision, when we, trying to collect all the information, right? We remember the process we said about the situation, trying to collect all the information, and then trying to find all possible alternatives, and then choose the one of the best or the best alternatives, and then implement. But given the complexities and the variation, not only for your daily life, but also for this, those problems happen in your workplace, right? You can imagine it will be very, very, very difficult to make rational decision. As it says, assume, this assumption already a little strong, right? Assumption very strong. You have the objective, right? Decision maker's objective, and then complete the information. Is it possible, right? And then consider all the alternatives. If you have taken my previous class, very likely I like to share with you my understanding of the iceberg effect. What we see is the iceberg at the tip or the top above the sea level, right? But the iceberg means they have a huge portion under the water. That means we don't see, we don't know that. So rather say, hey, I want to make a rational, decision. I would say, hey, take a look at this. Actually, we are making behavioral, or like we are using this behavioral model. We are making optimized decision. I should not say irrational, all right? But it is somehow we use this behavioral model trying to say we are making optimized decision, okay? We have incomplete information, although we try hard, all right? We don't have all the alternative we can see, or we can collect. Rational model, the assumptions are very strong. Behavioral model are a little bit more realistic or applicable, okay? So let me just try to circle this. Regarding the rational or irrational, so as we call this a bounded rationality. Why bounded? Bounded with your knowledge, with your information, right? With our knowledge, with our information. This is why, with the constraints, right? The constraint, the resource. Honestly, I also want to invest a lot of money. I want to buy a lot of real estate. And also I don't have that much money to pay the down payment, right? So this is somehow, this is the constraint which limited my decision making. The very last section, we talk about some tools. In the textbook, they have introduced some additional tools, but I would say first thing is project management. Treat project management as one of the most important tools. There are many specific tools. I just, download a picture trying to tell you what are they. And then as you can see, we have this payoff matrix. Simply speaking, we estimated the probability, we calculated the expected value, and then we compare the two alternatives. The higher expected value, we choose that alternative. And then the second in the textbook, they choose this so-called, they introduce the decision tree. Instead of two payoff, right? 1 and 2, they compile the expected value. Decision tree is telling us, many more, multiple alternatives. Let me quickly show you that. We come back to others. So this is the decision tree. So what we do, actually, we know all this. This can be two decisions. So assume we want to decide, build a small plant or build a large plant. And then those are all the possibilities, right? We have the probability, we have the expected value, and then we actually calculate this all back, and then we get, actually this is also an expected value approach. All right, just trying to make it simple. I don't want you to use that because most of the time, maybe most of the time that you won't see that anymore after this class. All right, but this is called the decision tree. You can have multiple alternative, but we work from bottom to the top. All right, and then we work one by one. It can be left to right or right to left. It can be the tree, right? Those are the roots. So we come back and then we calculate the expected value, and then we decide. We choose this one or we choose this one, and then there can be additional one. Okay, this is the, it called the extension of a payoff matrix. But this is to help make our decision. Those are like more, let's say that the economic model, or let's say quantitative model. Okay, quantitative model or statistical model. Simulation, usually we call this is more like belong to the econometrics, right? Linear programming, remember linear regression programming, all right? And then accounting tools, this is like a balance sheet, cash flow, all right? This management class, I don't focus on accounting and finance. Game theory, also game theory is a mathematics topic, but in economics, this is also help us to make the decision, okay? And then queuing model, is that called the queuing model? That, remember, I mentioned the grocery store. They use this model to see how many cashier they need to, let's say, to equip, to install. And then, to assess the lines, the waiting lines. So they start with, if I add 1, how I can, reduce the length of the lines. Actually, the results already. What is the decision, guys? Self-checkout, right? Let me tell you this, all right? When we talk about the cost saving, all right, this is ultimately reduce the cashier, the number of cashier. Probably you haven't heard about RFID, right? Radio frequency, those ID. And then the scanning become very easy. They just install the machine. All those products, they can, embedded a, let's say, a small chip. All right, and then once you go through that, sensor, automatically, and then they take the picture of your face, and then they charge it to your account. This will be the future, but 15 years ago, we already started to do that. All right, but in experiment, I want to just stop here. Other technical tools regarding problem solving or decision making. So no matter we call the inventory model or queuing model, distribution model, just take a quick look. As a quick summary, this chapter is about the problem solving. But for this problem solving, this is somehow very important as your role, as your managerial role. Okay, all right, thank you very much.